We're talking about foreclosure properties. Are they a good deal? This is part 3. Thanks for sticking around with me, but we're going to get through this one. Okay. We got a for sale sign up. Realtors hired. They got the order Nisi. They're going forward with the marketing, and now we're getting showings on the house. Okay. Now at this point, the person being foreclosed on is actually still the owner of the house. They're still on title as the owner. So they have absolutely the right to live in the home. And so there's usually some tension here. Or if there's a tenant, the tenant will still be living in the home. There's a little bit of tension here. It's hard to show a lot of these houses because the people being foreclosed on, they're going to sometimes make it more difficult than they have to in order to get this place sold. So you can imagine that they'll have limited showings, but nonetheless, people will view it. And when it comes time to making an offer on the house, if there's no other offers on the house, or if it's just in the first stage of this whole thing, you make an offer just like any other house, but you're negotiating with the lender at this point. You're not negotiating with the person on title. The order Nisi allows the lender to be making the decisions at this stage. So you go back and forth with the realtor, the listing realtor, your realtor and the listing realtor, and you're the one negotiating through your realtor, and the lender is negotiating through their realtor. And so you come to an agreement on price and terms on the contract. Okay, so then you can go through what is typically a normal subject removal process. Okay, so you can have an offer, and it can have all the subjects you want on it. If it allows. If it's in multiple offers, it might go with no subjects. But if it's in just a straight up sort of negotiation between the two parties, you have the regular subjects. So yeah, subject to finance, subject to inspection, subject to I don't know, a whole bunch of things. Okay, so a couple of differences will happen. First of all, you're going to have to put subject to court approval. Okay, so even if you get rid of all the other subjects, subject to court approval, right? It means you're going back to court, right? That's just part of the process. The buyer doesn't pay for this or anything like that. That's all actually coming out of the bill. The lender's going to get that money, and it's all coming out of the bill on what the borrower owes. Essentially, it's just tacking up. But there's another big difference, and there is what's going to be attached. What's going to be attached to the offer is called a Schedule A. Now, the Schedule A is just a fancy word that we use for a bunch of terms, and it doesn't even have to be a Schedule A, but the reason they call it a Schedule A is because the seller is the one supplying this set of clauses, and they must be included in the deal. And essentially what they are is they're a protection for the bank, the lender, and the courts as well. And what it essentially says is this property is being sold as is, where is. No warranties, no guarantees, nothing. It is simply the property and the house are being sold, and you have, if you walk in there on possession day and you don't like what you get, that's too bad. You're out of luck. There's really no going back on it. And these Schedule A's can be 3 or 4 pages long. Each lender will have their own, usually a kind of cookie cutter to the lender, but in certain cases they will actually specifically write a Schedule A, based on the property if there's some special circumstances that go along with the property that, aren't covered under the normal cookie cutter Schedule A. I can't think of anything off the hand, but maybe a river runs through it or something, and they got, they want to specifically address that, or, whatever that would be. You as the buyer have to sign that Schedule A, acknowledging it, and it's a pretty hefty legal document, and it basically leaves you 0 rights. And so what you want to sort of get into at this point is understanding that Schedule A and what they're trying to get to at this. So in British Columbia here, what we're used to as buyers is we're used to sort of being able to negotiate into the deal things beyond just the property and the house. And so an example of that would be the fridge, or the stove, or the washer and dryer, or the hot tub, or the light fixtures, the window coverings. Okay, these are things that we typically in British Columbia as buyers, we'll write into the contract, the sale includes the refrigerator, stove, which, all that, the window coverings, the hot tub. Foreclosure properties are different. The court and the lender, they don't acknowledge any of that. They don't own the house. The lender doesn't care about it. They only own the house. They don't own the fridge. They don't own the stove. Those are actually personal items. Some would argue that if it's attached to the wall, that it belongs to the house, and yeah, maybe. But because you're signing this as is, where is, you have very little recourse on any of that. So what you need to know is that if you walk into this house and it's got a beautiful fridge and a nice gas stove, 6-burner, and it's got like top of the line washer and dryer, and you're factoring that all in to you getting that on possession day into your finances, you could be in for a rude awakening on possession day when you walk in and there's no fridge, there's no stove, there's no washer dryer. Many times there are. Many times the seller just sort of walks away, or not the seller, but the person being foreclosed on. Many times they just walk away from it all. But I've seen in many cases where you walk in and there is nothing. They've taken every light fixture, every light bulb. They've taken one time I walked in and the wire, the guy took the wiring out of his house. He literally pulled the wirings through, and you can sort of see on their side. I mean, it's not very nice, but you can see on their side that, look, if you can't make a mortgage payment, to save your house, maybe the $3,000 that you're going to get from the fridge and the stove and the washer and dryer, maybe that is a big deal to you, and so anyways, if you walk in and you don't have any of those fixtures or any of those appliances, that's how you get the house. That's it. And so that's one of the big differences from a normal purchase to a foreclosure purchase. And so that in itself, if you were to buy that house, the foreclosure house, at the same price as the neighbor's house, that in itself would affect the value significantly, right? Because if you got to go in and buy $10,000 or $15,000 worth of new fixtures, plus all the labor to put them in, and the time waiting and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Right there's a value change. So you need to be aware of that. I mean, it's a lot of times not a make or break for the deal. Like sometimes you're going to walk into a foreclosure property, and I would say most time, 9 times out of 10, maybe even 8 times out of 10, you're going to walk into a foreclosure property, and if they have not been able to, if they've fallen into dire straits for other reasons, a lot of times they've neglected the maintenance on the appliances. They've neglected the maintenance on, some of these things. And so you don't even want them anyways. So and sometimes it's more of a hassle to get rid of them. So it just depends. Like you have to, but just be aware of it, because if you're not aware of it, it can be a rude awakening and it can be quite troublesome. You walk in and like you thought you were going to have all the stuff and it's not there. Okay. So I'm going to end it right there. We'll hit number 4, and we'll see if we can't finish it out on number 4.